Welcome to the Pulse Podcast, where we discuss the latest trends in workplace technology and healthcare equipment, anything from artificial intelligence to business transformation. My name is Shannon Stangl, and I'm the U.S. Country Sales Manager at DLL. On this episode of the Pulse Podcast, we're excited to have Andy Slawetsky. Andy is president of Industry Analysts, a news and research firm focused on imaging, print, and the ECM industries. Industry Analyst publishes one of the industry's most popular newsletters, the What's Happening Report, twice a week to over 40,000 subscribers, group members, and followers. Andy, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Shannon. It is a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, we're happy to have you. I hope I did justice in your introduction.
Yeah, you covered it pretty good. I'm just an ex-copier rep who found another job that I really enjoy doing, just covering the industry and chatting with great people like you and DLL and your customers. So pleasure to be here.
Well, let's jump right in. In the recent article from Gartner, 2024 Market Guide for the Workplace Experience Applications, they share a quote. Despite increased expectations for in-office days, hybrid employees continue to outnumber on-site employees as fully remote employees have decreased by 10%. From our own experience, we know that in the office equipment space, many of the manufacturers and dealers are back in the office 3, 4, or even 5 days a week. However, some of their customers and our end users are still often working in this hybrid environment. We wanted to get your opinion on what you think this means for the office equipment industry as a whole.
So, great question. It affects our industry just the same way it affects our customers, right? I visited some dealers that are still struggling with getting their people in, big dealers with beautiful facilities that they spend a lot of money on, and they are struggling to get their people to come back more than twice a week. People have gotten used since the pandemic. A big group of our workers out there have really gotten used to working at home, and they don't want to give that up. They see that as a benefit, as a privilege that they earn. And so, a lot of people have become very comfortable with that. We've got a lot of changes going on, a new administration, but I think maybe we're going to start seeing people come back a little bit, although I did just see a slide at a conference I was at recently where, and you were at this conference too, they said 70% of people are going to stay working at home. So somewhere in the middle is where this is all going to come together. And I think the regular typical customers out there will follow the lead of the government. And there's a lot of business leaders that want their people back, that have struggled with how can we get them back. And, as soon as you can point to the federal government and say, they're doing it, so we're doing it, it just makes it a little easier. It's a trend that I think isn't going to happen overnight, but I do think we're going to start seeing people coming back, not to pre-pandemic levels, but certainly coming back to the office a little more than we have over the last few years.
I agree with a lot of what you just said, and I think it's to be seen with some of the changes that are coming with the new administration, with the federal government, and then with other industries. So I guess we'll see how that turns out in the next couple of months. As a follow-up question to that, and especially close to our heart in the workplace industry, and as far as types of assets, what do you anticipate seeing more or less of to accommodate some of this hybrid return to work, specifically in the workplace industry?
Well, I would think, if I was a customer, I would think the days of those long 5-year leases might be, winding down. I know the price is a little higher, but I feel like if I can do a 2 or 3 year lease on big equipment, I'm not tied into it as long. I can get out of it. I can change things. For example, a lot of companies didn't need their big A3 devices when their entire organization has been working at home for the last 5 years. And so, people were stuck in leases, and going forward, they may look at I think the length of the terms that they had done in the past. Certainly also, and you're probably seeing this as well, a lot of the shift that's gone on in the type of hardware that they're buying. They're really buying A4 a lot more than A3. And A4 is a lot less expensive. So you may see maybe less leases on some of the equipment, although, you're going to see people bundling a lot more A4 and as they try to offset the need for that A3, right? I mean, maybe we don't need big console devices everywhere, but certainly there's a need for printers being spread throughout an organization, and it's just a different way of looking at it. But that affects the types of leases that you're offering to your dealers, and that they offer to their end users.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we see the same shift in terms of the different types of assets that we're getting. Some of the things that we're starting to see more of as well is some bundling of small printers, laptops, monitors. We're starting to see a lot of need for hybrid Teams environment, audio, visual, interactive boards, things like that. So I couldn't agree more with what you're saying.
Well,
I think there's
to
a lot
build
of
on, I'm sorry, to build on that, 5 years past the pandemic, we're at the end of all these 60-month leases. And so, people ran home and they bought everything they could. They bought printers, they bought, computers, they bought scanners, whatever they thought they needed to be able to support their work from home. And a lot of that was financed in bundles, like you mentioned. And so those bundles, those work from home bundles should start coming up, the ones that did them. And even looking at the future, that's an opportunity for dealers, like for those customers who aren't going to push their people back to work. Well, then, let's equip them properly so they're secure, so they have the right equipment to do their job, so they can, properly connect to the organization and get their jobs done.
Absolutely agree. And thank you for that. AI has been popular topic of discussion recently, not only in our industry, but across the board in many industries. How do you see AI continuing to evolve in workplace technology and the changing landscape of what we've seen in the past?
AI isn't necessarily new. We've had it in our products, and it's been used in development. It's been used by companies that support office equipment dealers. CEO Juice has been building with AI for years, and I think 95% of the dealers use CEO Juice, right? So it's a word that's come to become very popular in the last couple of years because of ChatGPT, and it made it mainstream, right? But it's been in our service, it's been in the development of products, it's been in R&D, it's been in call centers for a while now. And it's one of these things that the more people learn about it, the more they start looking into what can I do with it and where can I make an impact on my company. I mean, every office equipment reseller, could use it in all sorts of different ways. Your marketing department can use it in building a good message and a brand and building your brand. You could use it to do everything from creating a new logo to discussing a marketing campaign with it and how to approach it, and it'll give you advice, right? And that's for marketing, but you may also use it in the sales process. You may use it to look at your data at some point, evaluate where some of your opportunities are in ways that you've never really been able to do, because human eyes don't have the ability to go through that data the way an AI engine would. You'll be able to use it in your service, for looking at your service data and maybe realigning territories. Just so many different things that people are using it, and they're all different tools. It's not like there's one big, hey, I'm signing on to AI to go fix a new problem. It's overwhelming in a way of just how much is coming at us. And the opportunity for dealers is everywhere, and they should all be sitting down with their teams, trying to figure out, where are we going to start investing? Where are we going to start trying to make a difference with all of these different technologies that are coming out there? There's things you can do, the streamlining, the cost benefits that you'll be able to just bring to your business are just so numerous. You can't ignore it. Just doing things the way you've always done them, because that's how you've always done them, is a recipe for disaster. And you've got this new technology, this new capability that's just getting better and better every day. And you'd be foolish, I think, not to take a look at, how can I bring some of this into my business and make an impact, take advantage of it, leverage it.
Yeah, I think I've become addicted to some of the search engines out there, and Copilot and ChatGPT, and I
Yeah.
think we all start to use that in our everyday lives now, and it's really what a change in the last few years for that. Let's jump into a little bit about workplace security. Workplace security is at the intersection of physical security and digital, email, cyber, and identity security. What are you seeing companies in this space doing to ensure that their employees, their partners, and their customers are all protected?
Oh my gosh, it's such an endeavor, right? I mean, first of all, there are so many, more than half, I think, of the dealers that we tend to work with now are in managed services at some level or another, and they're most of them are carrying some type of cybersecurity. And so there's two pieces of this. One is securing yourself and your company. That's foremost their biggest issue. And then, their customers, right? They've got to make sure their customers are buttoned up. Personally, to me, I I feel like it's just a matter of time until every one of your customers is going to get hit. So having a plan, setting the expectation that, we're here to prevent this, but really we're here to get you through it when it happens, I think is something that these guys need to make sure they position themselves properly, get the right insurance, right? And even having the right insurance. One of these meetings that we sat at, the one last year, we sat through a presentation where they, and I asked because they talked about getting out of payment. How often does the insurance company do it? And they'll cancel you for anything that, any T that's not crossed and the I that's not dotted. He showed an example of how, in the policy they had written all the things they did, and that in one line they wrote the word ETC, etc., and it was denied. The claim was denied. So I asked, what percentage of the time are the claims denied? And it was almost 50%. It was 40 something percent of the time. So here you are thinking you're doing a great job, thinking that, you've got good technology, a good stack, you've got great, great software that you're using. And then somebody from accounting answers an email and suddenly everything is frozen and ransomware messages are popping up on everyone's screens, and you blew it. And you didn't do anything wrong. You had all the software loaded. You had it up to date. You have gone desk to desk with these people, training them, which is a thing that dealers are doing quite a bit of. They're trying to train their people, and they're trying to train their customers as part of the service of, don't answer these emails. And they'll send out phishing emails. That's something that they're doing to proactively try to trick their employees, so that when they trick them, they can bring them in and say, look, this was something that we're worried about. We got you. You need to be more careful in the future. But back to my original point, it's just a matter of time, right? I mean, like, I see so many good emails coming through my way that look like something I should click on, and I'm looking for this. I'm aware of this. I start thinking about, somebody who's not paying attention, who's not, engrossed in this, and we're just so vulnerable. And AI, back to the AI conversation, is going to just make this so much harder to avoid, right? And so you've got to have, I think, just it's beyond the protection. It's more of, what's your action plan going to be after you get hit? What are you going to do? What are the steps you're going to take? How have you mitigated your risk? What have you done to make sure that you can get up and going as quickly as possible? Do you need to pay this ransomware if you get hit with it? Is there a way for you to get past it? And then if you're the dealer selling this to your customers, you got to take that up to the next step with them, and make sure they understand that it's not if, but when. And it's, the bigger your company, the more points of vulnerability you have. The vulnerability isn't so much the printer, or, the unbuttoned up Wi-Fi, or just something that's, probably tough for somebody to find. It's somebody answering that email, and now suddenly now you've got a big problem on your hands. So I think it's a huge challenge for our industry. A lot of companies are making a lot of money on it, but I can tell you there's a lot of dealers who have learned some painful lessons from their customers, and then even from their own companies getting hit. And it's we've all got to be on our toes, but it's not about what are you going to do to prevent it. It's how are we going to get through it if and when it happens.
Yeah, really good points. And I hear you saying it's a lot about education of the employees and the members of the companies as well, to make sure that they're not the ones that let, those, individuals or
It could be anyone. It could be
yeah.
anyone.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Well, thank you. You, as the head of industry analysts, have relationships with a lot of manufacturers, all the manufacturers, if you ask me, resellers and financiers, lenders in this industry. What trends are you getting most excited about as we progress into 2025 in our space?
Well, the acquisitions never get old, right? I mean, that's and it's just the M&A overall. It's not even necessarily the dealers and dealers. It's, look at the action that we had last year. And I judge a year on the amount of people on my website, and record year last year, and every year is a record year. But last year, I mean, I couldn't have I couldn't have asked for more. Like Xerox and Lexmark news, Xerox acquiring Lexmark, breaking right in the last week or two of the year. Becoming instantly one of the year's most popular stories. Fujifilm coming into the U.S. Through partnerships, through Marco, through other partnerships that we've seen. It's just new vendors coming in here at a time when we're all looking at this industry saying, wow, it's going to consolidate. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And so we're starting to see things kind of parse into different, 3 or 4 different pockets. We've got this Ricoh Toshiba relationship that is, just starting out at this point, but it's going to get there. Each 3 to 6 months we get more news on it, and so then where does that go? And we see Konica and Fuji, and so they're coming together, and we've got Canon and HP have had a historically strong relationship. Will that last? I have no reason to expect that it wouldn't. And so you're starting to see these silos of big companies kind of coming together, getting some improved buying power, getting some improved manufacturing capability, going to one factory, and so where does it all lead? So these trends of consolidation, these trends of dealers buying dealers, they get me excited. They make my job a lot of fun. And then you drop a little thing on top of it, like AI, and everyone's super excited about it, and it's just it's the wild west. It's the open frontier, really, because everybody has an idea of what it is, and none of these two ideas are the same, right? And everybody can be using it differently. Everyone's trying to learn about it, and it's a great conversation piece. It's a really it's got people's attention, so it's exciting. And so I think those are the two things. They've got me excited. I want to see where everyone's going. DEC's opening up an IT organization that in the past they had said they weren't going to do that, and then all of a sudden they look at this opportunity and they say, wow, that's a lot of money we're leaving on the table. Why don't we do it? And who else? There's not a lot of companies that can just flip a switch and then all of a sudden hit the ground running like that, and then a couple weeks later they launch in Orlando. So we're seeing just so much action with these mega dealers. We talked about those big dealers. POA just had their announcement of almost hit $500 million this year, and they'll get it next year. Just so much action. Nobody's sitting still. Nobody, for an industry that's supposedly at the end of it, at the mature industry that we are, there's just so much going on and so much news. I don't know who's going to be the last of these guys standing, but it's really a lot of fun to watch and cover.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean, we've covered everything from hybrid work to AI to security, both physical, digital, cyber, you name it. We've talked about trends. Andy, thank you very much for joining us for the discussion today. And for our audience, thank you for listening. You can learn more on what's ahead for the workplace segment in DLL's Workplace Trends Report, available now on DLL.com. Stay tuned by following us on LinkedIn at DLL Group. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Pulse Podcast. Thank you, Andy Slowetsky, for joining us. My name is Shannon Stangl, and I'm the U.S. Country Sales Manager at DLL. Stay tuned for another exciting episode of the Pulse Podcast.
Thank you, Shannon.
This podcast is brought to you by DLL Group. All rights reserved. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be used as a substitute for professional advice. The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants. Nothing herein should be construed as legal, tax, financial, accounting, or investment advice. Please visit www.dllgroup.com/aboutus for further details.